If you're like me, you're probably pretty surprised that any kind of data, let alone big amounts of it, should ever become a sexy topic. And yet here we are. And I'm reasonably sure that, if not already, you're going to very shortly be asked to either approve or sell to your board the idea of spending lots of money on your big data strategy. I'm Mike Walsh. I'm the CEO of Tomorrow, and that's exactly the question I want to talk to you about today. What is your big data strategy for next year? Perhaps the best place to start is to talk about what data is. The way I see it, there's three kinds of data that you're probably dealing with in your enterprise. First of all, there is the data cloud. So this is the increasing tera or petabytes of data being generated by all the things that we do on a daily basis. Our mobile phone interactions, our use of social media, even the way we play video games or do our banking. All of this information, which used to be considered junk, is now being increasingly collected and possibly analyzed. The second type of data is what you'd call your data warehouse. This is where you've been spending perhaps millions of dollars in the past, collecting information, using it in your traditional core business. But as you've probably discovered, the data in this data warehouse is reasonably inflexible. And if you want a new kind of report, or you want to interrogate new relationships with data, it's both very time consuming and very expensive. The final type of data is what I like to call the data trash can, because it's data that you're probably collecting today, but you're doing nothing with. So your systems may analyze, through sensors, what are the ambient temperatures in your retail stores? You might be collecting the time of day that certain types of customers are buying from you or transacting. You have that information, but you really have no particular use case for it. So that brings me to this question of your big data strategy. Because I think the critical idea that you have to grasp is that this is now a strategic requirement for business leaders and not for your IT team. I've got 5 items that I think should be on any business leader's agenda for next year. The first is, consider creating a business intelligence unit outside of your IT team. Now, I know this seems counterintuitive. Big data is big tech, and surely your most proficient technical guys who've been running your systems for years should also be in charge of it. But there are a few issues that you should consider. A lot of the technology around big data is reasonably exotic, so it's quite different from the traditional systems that have maintained your data warehouse. Things like Hadoop clusters that were invented largely by Yahoo to manage the incredible amounts of data that they were using on their web-based platforms. Now, that isn't to say that your traditional IT people can't handle it, but it may mean if you want to act quickly and experiment, it may be slower to execute if you do it in-house in your traditional IT department. But there's another more important reason to consider creating a separate unit. You want the focus of your big data team to be around delivering business outcomes. It's very easy to get caught up in what I would call the cleaning up the cabinet routine, which is let's spend lots of time and money making everything perfect and organizing all the data perfectly to replicate your existing business. But I think the real focus should be driven by marketing, by looking at new ways to engage customers, which is a very different focus than you often see in traditional IT projects. Okay, number 2, focus on some small, tough problems early on. Because what you want to do is get some early use cases and some early examples and case studies that demonstrate the value of investing in big data. This is going to help you down the track when you're going to have to spend a lot more money and convince the board that it's worth doing. If you can solve some customer churn issues, or you can really get to the bottom of loyalty or other big business problems, then you can easily demonstrate down the track why it's worth spending more money. Idea number 3, don't get too caught up with the expanding consumer data cloud. Now, of course, it's very easy to get excited by the possibility of overlaying your business across comments on Twitter and Facebook and plugging it into, Instagram photos. While all of that is increasingly important and interesting, I believe that there is very large amounts of very useful data that exist in your business that you're probably not utilizing today. So start there. Look for some hidden gems and uncover the data treasure that's probably already inside your business in the data trash can that you're not adequately leveraging. Idea number 4, take visualization seriously. Now, I know that this doesn't sound like necessarily the most important thing to do, but believe me, when you're dealing with business audiences and business decision makers, making large amounts of numbers look attractive and visualizing them in the ways that make sense will really bring your big data strategy to life. So talk to some creative people, talk to some designers, and think about ways that you can visualize your real-time data on interesting and big screens. Even create a kind of a big data war room. And this will help really bring this issue to life for your senior decision makers. Okay, number 5. The 5th thing that you have to absolutely focus on for your big data strategy in the coming year is to change your decision-making processes. There's no point spending millions of dollars on big data without also asking yourself the question, which is it going to be implemented into the way that you set your strategy and you manage your people? Because ultimately, you want your people to be able to start using data in their everyday conversations, to be able to challenge their superiors and say to them, should we really be doing this? Is there data to support this decision? Now that's tough in organizations which have generally been ruled by authority or charisma or intuition. But there's absolutely no point taking advantage of big data if you don't also shift your mindset at the same time.